Hi, everyone. I think everyone can hear me. So my name is Sadaf, and I'm an entrepreneur. I I conceptualize, design, and develop products that are tech-enabled, and they deliver information to financial services companies, such as banks and funds. So just, looking back at my last 25 years, my experience has mainly been in the media industry. I started off in 1999 at a small company called Loan Pricing Corporation. It's what you would call a startup nowadays. What my job really involved was every day we would email or call banks, traders, and we would ask them to send their information on the assets that they were trading or investing in. They will send over the act sheets to us. We would receive that information from our fax machines on a piece of paper. We would then take that piece of paper, we would figure out what the relevant information was. We would then enter it into our database on our computers, which we at that moment thought were very advanced. Our databases were just merely Excel spreadsheets. Then we would collate all that information together, copy it on a disk, and at the end of every week, we would mail it out to our clients. Our clients, we were based out of New York. Our clients were based in California, in the United Kingdom. So getting that information on a disk to them would take a couple of days. So by the time we had received the information to the time we had processed it and delivered it to our clients, a couple of days had already gone by. If you're looking at all the tools that are available to us right now and how the industries work nowadays, my job would probably not exist. Nowadays, traders, investors send their information in the form of instant apps via messaging tools, API feeds, emails, web crawlers, tools, just scrape that information straight from those tools, enter it into a database that feeds it directly into an app or a website that the consumer is directly interacting with. So the time from when the information has been received, processed, and delivered is literally seconds. So my industry has really been impacted by a lot of innovation, especially technology innovation in this space. Trying to remember where I put the clicker. So as I mentioned, I've spent about the last 25 years in this industry, being part of the media industry. Some of the companies that I worked with or were competing companies to the companies that I worked with were Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters, Standard & Poor's. Those are names that you might be familiar with. So most of the innovations that we have seen in the media sector has been predominantly around technology. But innovations in technology don't really only impact the technology sector. Technology is used across all sectors, all industries, including media where I work. So the first innovation that I wanted to highlight was it was a production efficiency tool. And it resulted in ability to process information really quickly and really ended up in increasing the audience. I'm talking about the invention of a production tool back in 1440 called the Gutenberg press. And it was developed by Johannes Gutenberg, who was a German goldsmith. Before the printing press, as it's called now, books were written by hand, very expensive, rare commodity, only really the rich would have access to books. The printing press democratized the written word. Book production eventually became really quick, really cheap, and it allowed anyone who was literate, who could read, to have access to the written word. And this really led to an increase in literacy and education of the public. The next tool that I'd want to highlight, the next innovation I want to highlight, really increase the speed of information delivery across time and distance. So going forward a few centuries from the printing press, electricity has already been invented. In 1835, Samuel Morse invented the telegraph. Now one can send messages using Morse code, which also he developed, over long distances in a short span of time. as opposed to writing letters that could take weeks or months to arrive, if they even arrived. The telegraph was a precursor to the messaging services we use, such as email or WhatsApp or Snapchat. The next innovation really changed the medium of information delivery. So, the first two innovations I mentioned were around the written word. This was the format of content delivery. So I'm talking about audio and visual. So we had radio, which enabled audio broadcast instantaneously to large audiences, followed by television, which delivered visual component to the content. This really added to the literacy of the audience because you no longer needed to know how to read in order to consume information, which I don't know if it's such a good thing. The next innovation is really huge, and I think it really improved productivity for us as human beings across all sectors. It was a big game changer. It was the internet. So the internet allowed audiences to be connected digitally 24/7. As opposed to telegraph, internet could be accessed by individuals from their homes. They no longer had, as long as they had access to a computer and lived in an area with connectivity. And as opposed to TV and radio, which delivered curated content, the users could then search for their own information and do their own research. The next innovation allowed us to access information, content, anywhere, anytime. I'm talking about mobile phones, specifically smartphones. Not only weren't we constantly connected, but we can take this information, this access to information with us anywhere that we want. We don't have to go home and log into our laptops to find out how our investment portfolio is doing, who got voted off which reality TV show, or which email we might have received. Then you have a very different kind of innovation. So everything we've talked about earlier, the innovations have really been around the production of content. The next innovation was really from a consumer perspective. Now, all of a sudden, users started becoming content creators and creating their own networks. And this was the invention of the social media platforms, such as Facebook. That was the initial first social media platform. Users created their own profile. They created their own networks. They created their own content initially by posting photos. Then the content started, receiving feedback through comments. Then you had your 24/7 streaming contents. So, we have on-demand audio content that we can listen to from podcasts, or we can watch any documentary, movie on Netflix, Disney Plus, etc. With podcasts, audience can often connect directly with the content creators, and this allows the content creators to create their own brands, as opposed to networks that create their brand. And this really promotes a sense of community and really encourages entrepreneurship. Lastly is something that I'm going to talk about a lot, which is personalized content. Artificial intelligence-powered content, which is adding a layer of profiling on the content, and that what it does is it allows consumers to receive exactly the content that they want, that they're interested in, at the time that they're interested in. Some of the really innovative tools and platforms that have been developed on back of these innovations are something that I wanted to highlight. First is Wikipedia. So like the printing press that democratized the written word, Wikipedia did that for information. So Wikipedia collects information on topics using crowdsourcing. You no longer have to have access to a professor or to be one to contribute to a topic. And consumers of this information can provide feedback. This information is free and available for everyone on the internet. I would highly caution everyone from using Wikipedia as your only source of information, though. The next platform is X, formerly known as Twitter. Anyone with an account can publish a mini blog on any topic, news, and get it delivered to their audience directly without a middleman. You don't need to be a reporter for New York Times to write about an opinion or a relevant topic. I could be out shopping at my mall, and I could walk by 5 shops and notice that I'm seeing a lot of browns in the windows. And I could write about how I think brown is the color for fall. Or I could be walking down the street and I see a bike being stolen, and I can write about that. I choose the content and my audience receives it. Some of the other tools that I wanted to mention was TikTok. which one of the speakers earlier mentioned. It introduced short-form video content to audiences, and it really helped to engage with the younger audience and the creative industries. Podcast, it personalized storytelling and how it's being delivered to the audiences and create communities. And then artificial intelligence-powered news feeds. So the ability to curate news and tailor it to your preferences. So these are things that we're already seeing in our everyday use of news, content, information. What are some of the other things that are coming up down the pipeline? More AI-driven personalization. Content is being delivered to the consumer based on their profiles, their shopping habits, their political views, their networks, delivered in multiple formats, written, audio, visual, alerting us to certain events, content availabilities based on our preferences. Some of it we are seeing already on platforms such as LinkedIn feeds, Facebook, Instagram. Another thing that we're seeing is immersive media. So tech that is enabling us to view content in multi-dimensions like augmented visual reality. An example is Meta's glasses. You can take calls, listen to music, hear news, take pictures, consume information, all while you're wearing these glasses. You can use the Meta AI to answer questions while you're wearing your glasses. And lastly, decentralized platforms. With the development of consumer profiling, which is required for AI-driven personalization, data privacy and data ownership is becoming a really contentious issue. So decentralized platforms work on a peer-to-peer connection rather than being connected to a centralized authority. So there's no centralized authority that houses your information and owns it, rather than the user controls and owns their own data. And most of these apps run on blockchain technology. Some examples are Uniswap and Ethereum. So why are we seeing all this innovation? First, as I mentioned, we're seeing it because of the technological advancements globally across all sectors. Second is economic incentives. There's a big payout in having a captive audience. You can market your goods, your contents, your perspectives, your biases onto them. Next is changing user behavior. Users are now more and more dependent on information access and needed to be location agnostic. For example, during COVID, users wanted to be able to work from home. Students needed to be educated from home. Post-COVID, now we want to be able to work from home when we want, when we're on vacation, and we want to have access to the level of information that we would usually have in a work or a school environment. Next, there's increasing demand for personalized content. You know, we're in an era of information overload. And there's increasing demand for consumers to deliver them content that is relevant just to them. So it's going to save the user time to determine what is actually useful and relevant information for them. And last is accessibility demands. As consumers, we've gotten spoiled. We want access to information when we want it, instantaneously. I'm listening to somebody speak, I want to fact check them, I want to fact check them right now. So most of the innovations that we've seen have resulted in a positive outcome for industry and consumers. Productivity has increased, consumer satisfaction and experiences have improved. However, there are a few things that we need to address and be cautious around that has arisen because of these innovations. First is information overload. Too many sources of information, providing too much information all at the same time, all demanding my attention. So this is leading to increased level of anxiety and mental fatigue. Second is misinformation. The democratization of information also means anyone can use a self-publishing platform and put content out there. How do consumers distinguish credible sources? And how does one even identify sources? For example, the whole campaign against vaccinations. How do we know the information that's being shared with us on WhatsApp and Instagram is legitimate? Next, privacy concerns. So the whole development of personalized content has been on the back of consumer profiling. More consumers are unaware that their data is being stored and mined to create contents and advertisements to target their attention. And these profiles are being stored and shared across platforms. Many times they're data breaches due to hacks. Like there was a huge one 2 years ago for a company called 23andMe, where about 6.9 million customer DNA profiles were leaked. Lastly, there's an increasing digital divide between the haves and the have-nots. people in economically impoverished areas or with limited internet access are not able to really benefit from these innovations. And people of a certain age group are not able to keep up with these advancements and are not be able to be part of the consumer groups that are enjoying the benefits. They oftentimes fall prey to hacks, and many times they suffer economic losses. So overall, all these technical innovations in providing access to information and allowing consumer to consume it when they want, anywhere, anytime, has really led to a lot of benefits for human race as a whole, but we should really make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. So that's what I wanted to share with everyone. Thank you for listening.